Okay, thank you. So we will call this meeting to order. This is the regular Encinitas City Council meeting, Wednesday, March 24, 2021 at 6 p.m. May we please have a roll call?
Yes, Mayor. Councilmember Hinsey?
Here.
Councilmember Lyons?
Here.
Councilmember Mosca?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Crayons?
Here.
And Mayor Blakespear.
Here.
The record will show that all members of the City Council are present.
Okay, thank you. I invite you to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, now we're on to our special presentation or proclamation. And we have a presentation of the My Encinitas app by the Information Systems staff.
Good evening, Mayor Blakespear and City Council members. Let me just turn my video on. Continuing it twice. So in an effort to increase communications to the public and encourage public participation, staff has some exciting new developments to share. Staff is proud to introduce the new My Encinitas communications ecosystem, which is designed to enable community members to connect and collaborate with the city like never before. Recent developments include My Encinitas TV, a 24/7 video stream of city-produced content available on cable and online, and a new improved online news center connecting our community directly to My Encinitas TV, the My Encinitas TV app, social media channels, email updates, and of course, our up-to-date news feed. The My Encinitas app, available for Apple and Android smartphone devices, is designed to connect users directly to the most frequently used pages of the city's website and self-service portals. The My Encinitas app also replaces See-Click-Fix for connecting community members directly to the appropriate staff to report nuisances and hazards quickly and effectively, which in turn keeps the city safe, healthy, and beautiful. And now I'm going to turn it over to Karen Pahar, who has prepared a short demo of these platforms that will be streamed on My Encinitas TV. Karen. Speaking on behalf of the communications team, I'd like to express our sincere gratitude to the IT department who worked diligently to develop the Encinitas communications platform. And that's it for our presentation, and staff is available for any questions you may have.
Well, thank you. That was a nifty little video. My one question is, I was trying to put it on my phone while you were presenting that, and I noticed that there's just one comment, and it says, this won't let me create an account. It says my email is not valid, though I've checked it 20 times, so it's a useless app for me. And I just wanted to see if we could get staff or our consultants to respond. I didn't type that in, by the way. I'm reading that on the App Store. So if somebody could respond to that person and try to help them so that there's, that follow-up with that one person. So we're currently rated 1 out of 5, and it's the only comment.
We'll definitely follow up with that, yes.
Okay, thank you. But it looks great. And I just wanted to ask about, on SeeClickFix, a person could report something and then somebody would comment like, oh yeah, I noticed that too, or oh yeah, the water's been shut off, or this or that thing, with all these comments. Is that a feature that is still available, or has that been changed?
This is not set up for a dialogue. There can be communication between the staff person that's working on the report, but not a dialogue between community members.
Okay. Okay, great. Well, thanks very much for the update. Councilmember Mosca.
I was just going to ask about, Pat, excellent presentation, and thank you for everything that staff has done. My question is about, there's a lot of folks that share issues that they have in their neighborhood on Nextdoor. Is there any way that we can kind of share with them apps that can help them, if they have an issue with, anything that they have an issue with in the neighborhood, which they'll write to the city or call the city, and they feel like they're at a loss for how to connect and place a complaint about that issue or get it resolved. Could we basically point them, put this type of app out there and kind of just put it out on Nextdoor so that they know how to kind of take a picture of what they have or report what they need corrected?
So I have promoted this on Nextdoor twice. Are you asking if we can have this linked from Nextdoor?
Yeah, so I wasn't aware that we have actually had it on Nextdoor, but if we can kind of be more surgical about it and make sure, people that, because I see every time I go in Nextdoor, there's a lot of folks that are talking about different issues that they have, in their particular neighborhood, and they're going to contact the city, but they've contacted the city and they're just at a loss of how to report it or how to get it resolved. And if we could be a bit more surgical about putting these kind of apps out there and here you go, this is how you can report any issue that you have. And this is the right place to go, and this is how you can get it resolved.
I can look into doing that. I'll promote this on the site again, and then I'll follow up with, I'll work with the IT department on how we might be able to better do that.
All right, thank you.
You're
Okay,
welcome.
well, thanks very much for that great presentation. We appreciate it. So
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah. So we'll move on to the next part of our agenda, which is oral communications.
Mayor, we do have 4. Excuse me. Our first speaker is Patricia Vasquez. And Patricia, you can start when ready, and you do have 3 minutes.
Thank you. I've unmuted now.
There you go. I can hear you.
Good evening. Many of my neighbors and I have expressed concern over the traffic and public safety issues on the Costa Avenue corridor, particularly in light of the numerous proposed developments that would negatively impact the already dangerous situation there. I was very pleasantly surprised to see that on page 26 of the fiscal year 2020 to 2021 CIP status report, that there is a budget of $1.475 million assigned to the La Costa Avenue improvements. I also noted that there was an additional $237,000 that is in the traffic mitigation fees that the city will be receiving from Alila Morea Beach Resort. We really look forward to hearing from the city at this point to outline its plan to us of how these funds are going to, in fact, provide the needed traffic and public safety infrastructure improvements on the La Costa Avenue corridor. So far, the city has been silent on this matter. So we would appreciate these updates, any details that you can make available to us as the public, we would appreciate. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gerald Kessler.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I'm still fired up about the Staver project on Melba. And I just wish that they would have let us communicate before they start dumping 31 houses on that busy street on Melba. It's very upsetting. The water is a problem over there. Traffic is a problem over there. And it's just, why didn't they work with the community first? And now we've got this 31 houses going in that busy street. It's very frustrating for us over here. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cindy Cremona. Cindy, you can start when you're ready. You have 3 minutes.
Thanks, Kathy. Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Cindy Cremona, and I'm the moderator for Encinitas Viewpoint. I understand the application deadline for equity committee positions is now closed. I'd like to know if the mayor and council intend to ask the applicants to speak towards their candidacy and make decisions on positions to be filled during an upcoming city council meeting. I myself would have liked to apply for a role, but the equity application was vague as to how many open positions there are and what titles or responsibilities any role or roles may be expected. Maybe the council, in its haste, didn't have the time to figure out what the equity committee actually does. Regardless of the vagueness of a committee role and its purpose, I would think, in order to be equitable, that applicants should have the opportunity to speak in the light of day instead of under cover of darkness. I would expect the mayor and council make the decision-making process fair and equitable during an upcoming council meeting as well. After all, this is Mayor and Council Member Hinsey's project, and it would seem equitable to all for further actions to be viewed before the people unless there were something to hide. Speaking of darkness and light, I once again renew my request that the mayor and city council consider ways to get the public back into City Hall so we may resume the city's business with the residents participating in person. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Brent Lowe. Brent, you can start when ready, and you do have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Yeah. When I was listening to the city council meetings, I was taken by the young man who spoke a couple weeks ago regarding marijuana being consumed at the skate park, as well as his experience going back to varsity level sports at school. And I was interested in that because I serve as a coach, coaching both basketball and football teams. And from my experience, I know firsthand how difficult it has become for teens to deal with isolation, the academic confusion, and all sorts of anxiety. And a social media culture suggests that marijuana is the solution for this type of anxiety. And this is fast becoming a glaring problem that parents and adults who work with teens are facing to some degree. Mental health issues, suicidal ideation, and using marijuana as a safe and normal solution. By permitting pot shops and grows, you're only reinforcing the idea of normality of drug use to these youth. I was reading in the Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics, a recent study from Ohio State reported that youth with mood disorders who use and abuse marijuana have a higher risk for self-harm, higher risk for death by all causes, and death by unintentional overdose and homicide. And marijuana use disorder was documented in more than 10% of youth with mood disorders. I highly encourage you to consider these findings and recognize the real life situation marijuana is having on our teens. Please encourage law enforcement to enforce smoke-free and vape-free parks, specifically our skate park where young children are looking up to older teens. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And that does conclude oral communications.
Okay, thanks very much. a report from closed session.
Thank you, Your Honor, Mayor, and members of the council and the public. The council met in closed session on 2 items. The first item was existing litigation, Surface Point versus City of Encinitas. The city council discussed the status of this report with the city attorney, and there are no reportable actions on that matter. The second item was conference with legal counsel, significant exposure to litigation. The city council met with special counsel on this matter to discuss the status of this matter, and there are no reportable actions following that item. And that concludes my report out from closed session.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have changes to the posted agenda.
There are no changes to the posted agenda. And then in moving to the consent calendar, the mayor has removed item 8F.
I'll move the remainder of the consent calendar.
I'll second.
Okay, Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosca,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Crayons,
yes,
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We can now move to item 8F.
Okay, thank you. I pulled this item because I wanted to make a few comments about it, and then I'll plan to move approval. But this is a landscape maintenance and services agreement for $10.7 million that covers 6 years in the city, up to 6 years. So it's a lot of money, and it's a broad effort. And I wanted to highlight that I think that we as a city have not been doing as high a good a job holding ourselves to as high a standard as we should be when it comes to the maintenance of some of our public spaces, particularly the areas that are not in our public parks but are along our roads, like for example the coastal rail trail, the new protected bike lane, and the sand that is continually in the path and gets complained about, and then the walking path on Highway 101, and in general the rail corridor, the 6 miles of rail corridor that we have. And we have an agreement with North County Transit District that we will be maintaining that space. And so as the mayor and a citizen in this city, I complain about these things on a personal level to the city manager and to the different departments. And a lot of times the things do get dealt with or cleaned up. But we need to have a process that's not complaint driven. We have seen a number of different examples of that. Like for example, in Leucadia and the rail corridor, we had residents coming forward to complain about mattresses and trash and all sorts of things that were left in the rail corridor. And we eventually seem to get somewhat on top of that. But these problems seem endemic and they seem systemic. And we need to have an understanding and an ownership of the maintenance of these spaces, especially when we've done things like invest in a sand sweeper. The sand sweeper should be sweeping the sand routinely out of that bike lane on Highway 101. And so just today I was in the on the rail trail today talking about the trash that remains in the North County right-of-way, the NCTD right-of-way, despite our maintenance agreement that says that we will be cleaning that up. And I'm bringing this up because I want to highlight it for my council colleagues as something we don't all know what each other are talking about with the professional staff, and also for the city manager and the professional staff and the public to know that, at least from my perspective, this is an area where we hold ourselves to a higher standard when it comes to our parks, and our parks have a lot more attention. And these linear parks or these public spaces that are equivalent to parks need to be held to that higher standard as well. And so I will be supporting this contract for $10.7 million, recognizing that how we maintain our public parks is different from how we maintain our public streets. But the public and the electeds who represent the public do not distinguish between which contract it falls under. They experience our city in the ways that they go about it. So walking on the rail trail versus walking in the park may not trigger that there's any difference there. And I really think we need to prioritize these places that Public Works has been managing as much as we are prioritizing the places that are managed by our parks. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll invite the city manager to make any comments that she wants to make in response to my comments. And so Pam, do you want to say anything?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You and I have had a conversation about this, and your points are all very well taken. We had staff go out to the Coastal Rail Trail today, and I'm not sure if my colleagues, Jennifer Campbell or Tim Gismira, have anything to add, but I believe that we now have a really good schedule and a plan to systematize the cleanup of those areas. And so I just wanted to let you know that the point was well taken and well received.
Okay, thank you. Yes, and I also just want to say that it also involves the plant maintenance. So, you know, clear cutting versus planting with consciously, and also maintaining plants like the acacia and the ice plant as they grow across the trail. You know, all parts of it, I think we need to have that increased attention. So I appreciate the response, and I will go ahead and move approval on this item.
Second.
Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosca,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Crayons,
yes,
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, great. Thank you. The next item is our action item, and that is the specific plan. So I will hand it over to staff to handle. It says staff is IV Zorns, and I guess I'm not familiar with that person, IV.
Thank you, Mayor. It's actually Planner Nick Zorn's Planner 4. So that's what that one is. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And can everyone see the PowerPoint yet?
Yes, we can.
Okay, excellent. So good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. This evening, we are here to discuss a budget allocation for additional funding for the El Camino Real Corridor specific plan. On the next slide, we're going to start the presentation with a short video that has been prepared, which highlights the main objectives of the specific plan and begin public engagement efforts, sets the general timelines, and also notes the major steps in the development of the specific plan. Just need to switch screens really quick, so bear with me.
The city of Encinitas is proceeding with the process to develop the El Camino Real specific plan.
Can you turn it up?
Plan to reimagine what's possible for future development within the El Camino Real corridor in Encinitas. Today, the El Camino Real corridor is the city's most vibrant commercial corridor and serves as a major thoroughfare within the community. In the future, the city's general plan envisions transforming El Camino Real into a more connected, walkable area that supports a mixture of uses, including retail, office, and even neighborhood-friendly housing in the right locations. The city is at the very early stages of the specific plan development process. Before the city moves forward with a specific plan, we want to check in with you to understand the values and priorities that are most important to you. This is the first of many opportunities for you to provide input during the process. The city is now starting outreach with the community and will use this input to develop the specific plan. The city will schedule virtual meetings and presentations to community stakeholders and launch an online survey to seek input on the specific plan. For more information or to sign up for alerts, please visit www.encinitas.gov/el-camino-real-sp. We encourage you to get involved.
All right, and I will share the screen for the rest of the PowerPoint. Give me one moment. All right, so to finish off the presentation, just to cover what is a specific plan. A specific plan is a comprehensive planning and zoning document for a defined geographic region of the city. A specific plan implements the general plan by providing a set of development standards applied to a particular geographic area within the city. Many people ask why create a specific plan? Well, a specific plan helps to define and create a sense of place for a particular area within the city, helps to promote a vibrant and more user-friendly area, streamlines the development review for new projects within the area, creates a mixture of uses within the specific plan, and also helps to improve pedestrian and bicycle connectivity and traffic patterns within the prescribed area. What types of changes might be considered in the development of a specific plan? Well, that can touch with everything from the allowed uses, which can be commercial, residential, ultimately mixed use if it's a combination, pedestrian and bicycle connectivity, traffic improvements, development standards, development review processes, and also, the potential to revitalize existing developments within the area. The current slide is actually a visual representation of a typical process which is taken during the development of a new specific plan. The city is currently working on step number 1, also called on the flow chart the work program, where we are dedicating funding, seeking policy direction, setting early timelines, releasing the request for proposals, and assigning project responsibilities. From here, the city staff, once completed, will move forward with the help of a selected consultant to complete the main milestones of the current context, long-term direction, and ultimately final steps. Throughout all steps of the specific plan development will be, will be public engagement and the participation. So that's really something that's going to be seen throughout the overall process in order to be able to make sure that we have the most successful specific plan for this area. The initial request for proposals for the El Camino Real corridor specific plan was released in November of 2020. No responses were received by the January 11, 2021 due date. Due to a lack of the proposals, city staff contacted 4 potential respondents that registered and viewed the El Camino Real corridor specific plan RFP via Planet Bids, but ultimately did not provide a proposal. Staff gathered information on why they did not submit proposals in the response to the RFP. Feedback received included the need for additional project funding, which would include and provide the city's desired increased community engagement efforts, a full environmental impact report, which would be required. And then also additionally, the potential respondents requested additional time to prepare and submit a comprehensive proposal once the RFP is re-released. Ultimately, tonight we're here with a recommended action, which is to adopt resolution number 2021-19, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Encinitas amending the fiscal year 2020-21 budget, authorizing a budget transfer, authorizing budget transfer in the amount of $315,000 to the El Camino Real corridor specific plan project number WC21B. For a project total amount of $615,000. Approval also to re-release the request for proposals for the El Camino Real specific plan, and the approval to increase the agreement with JPW Communications by $25,000 for a total not to exceed $294,545. This concludes the presentation portion of the agenda item 10A, and staff is present for any questions.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. Just before I go to the questions, I wanted to know how many public speakers we have on this item.
There are none.
Okay, Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, mine is more of comments than questions, but I did want to say thank you to Nick and thank you to staff for what they've done on the original RFP and the revision of this RFP. I'm excited. I know that, not because we didn't get any responses before, but because we are showing a commitment to this important corridor. Deputy Mayor Kranz and myself have been advocating to have this in our CIP for some time and to invest in this corridor. And so tonight we have another opportunity to really show our commitment for this extraordinary corridor, this important corridor in our city, to really step up and invest in this community corridor as much as possible. This specific plan will allow us to engage the community and really from the bottom up, engage in a visioning kind of program where we talk about, what do we envision this important corridor to be and function like and look like in the future? And all of the analyses are going to come with this, from economic analysis to multimodal kind of analysis, is really going to help this plan be something that can be really put in place and useful for this corridor in terms of just the connectivity, which we've been talking about for some time. You can see all those shopping centers and all of the centers there that really it's hard to kind of get to those, other than by car. And so we've been talking about connecting these for a long time. And so, I'm excited about how we're going to be able to connect them, make this whole corridor safer, more walkable, and find opportunities even for perhaps some affordable housing in some of these areas. But it's really about engaging the community and coming up with a vision for the corridor that we all think really works for the corridor. And let me give you an example of what I mean. There's several different parcels along these areas that are likely to sell or have already sold in the past or will sell in the future. And people constantly ask me, well, why did that get done like that? Or why did, how come you weren't able to, put something there that's more useful to the community? And I always say, well, that was really that was what the box allowed that developer to build. In the case of the self-storage facility, across from the Taco Bell on Encinitas Boulevard, people always ask me, well, that's a really awesome spot for so many different uses. Why is there a self-storage facility going there? Well, that was the box that the zoning allowed for that particular use to happen. And so this is going to allow us to the community to look at this corridor and say, okay, what are the uses that we like? What are the uses that are relevant to us, right? That we want in our town, and what are the uses that we don't want, and so that we can actually make sure that we have a vision and that our zoning laws and all of our rules that the developers have to play by and that everybody has to play by are basically focused on bringing that vision to life, right? And to make sure that we're all focusing on bringing that vision to life. And so I think that this is what the specific plan is about. It's what it's about for me. I'm excited. I hope that we get some really solid responses and that we're able to start engaging the community on what is the vision for El Camino Real as it's transitioning. Certainly you see that transition happening in the northern portions where we have the Home Depot, we have, Pier 1 just went out. We have there's several different restaurants, Chili's that just went out. We have the Target space, the sporting goods, Dick's, which is like the second or third iteration of a sporting goods in a store that's 25,000 square feet. A lot of this is starting to transition, and what's going to happen in the future is something that we need to be we need to exert more control over. We need to basically sit down as a community and decide, what do we want to happen with this space? We see the southern portion of the corridor already starting to transition organically and naturally by itself, and lots of investment going on there. But we definitely need to get in front of this. And so when things are changing, that they're changing in a way that frankly, we approve of and is consistent with our vision for the future. So I'm excited about this. I do have one question for the consultant. It's important to me that we kind of really talk about what we consider El Camino Real, and I think that for me, it's really from as far south as around Cerro maybe Santa Fe on the southern portions, and absolutely up to Leeuwenhoek and Leucadia on the northern portions. But it's also important to capture Encinitas Boulevard going east and Encinitas Boulevard going west. There are several key parcels in those areas that I think that we need to really kind of think about what we envision for those areas. And important on the other side, on the northern portions, that we're looking going slightly east and slightly west to include those parcels of the Walmart parcel, which I think we've lost, 3 or 4 different retailers and restaurant folks in those areas. And so those are that's stuff that's going to be changing in the near future. So we want to make sure that we're including those areas as part of this visioning statement, as part of this specific plan. So I would move this motion whenever it's relevant because I really believe deeply in it. So thank you.
Okay, thank you. We'll take that as a motion. And Councilmember Lyons.
Thank you, Mayor Blakespear. I really want to reinforce something that Joe has brought up, and that is the limits of this study probably should not be defined specifically at this point, but be a little bit fluid so that we can make sure that we capture the connectivity and the right uses within the corridor, specifically around Encinitas Boulevard, both the east and west, but also south along El Camino Real, south of Encinitas Boulevard. I think this is great timing. I want to compliment the other council members, our staff, and the public for being enthusiastic about all the hard work to get it to this point. And I think we're on the right track now. I think we can do much better with connectivity, with function, and with aesthetics along this corridor to better meet the needs of our community, today's needs. And so if it's appropriate, then I think it might be, I'll second Joe's motion.
Okay, thank you. Deputy Mayor Kranz.
Yes, thanks. It's great that, we're getting better prepared to have a specific planning process that is more robust. I had always assumed that we were just getting started with the original grant proposal and that there would be more to come, but the ability to combine it in a single RFP and awarding of a contract makes a lot of sense. So I appreciate the effort to get it back to the council. This photograph is really pretty remarkable because what it illustrates to me are a couple of things. One, the specific planning process that went into the Encinitas Ranch specific plan that required the wetlands of the creek there to be a green space is really quite a contrast to what you see to the south, which is a concrete culvert and undergrounded creek. And so, I don't have any pretension about the idea that we're going to be able to daylight the creek to the same extent, but that's the sort of thing that I think should be an important part of this conversation is how do we reactivate the environment here. You also can see in the lower portion of the photograph that what we have here is essentially an 8-lane road. And that's certainly what we had as, that's the way it's configured in our circulation element. But is that really what we want here in this very important stretch of our community? And I think the answer is probably no. And so I look forward to the circulation element process running parallel with this specific planning, because in the general plan, when it was adopted, it specified that the El Camino Real and the Highway 101 would both have streetscape planning that the city did. So very important. Also, I see in the very bottom of that photograph an NCTD Breeze bus, and that's on the 309 route. And Route 309 goes from our downtown out Encinitas Boulevard and then hangs a left and goes north. And it is connected to Carlsbad, Oceanside, and some very up to Camp Pendleton. So we had a NCTD meeting the other day, and at which there's the proposal that we're going to do a study which addresses some of the travel speeds and speed and reliability study is what it's called. And so, you know, they may come to each jurisdiction along the way and talk about ways to improve public transit by restriping for express lanes during peak commute times and things like that. So I think that it's critical that we keep in mind that this road runs from essentially Interstate 5 up to Camp Pendleton, and that we should certainly engage with the jurisdictions to the north of us so that we can create a roadway that is comprehensive and doesn't have that feel of moving from one jurisdiction to the other, but indeed has all of the attributes of complete streets that we would expect from a road like this. So I look forward to the process, and I know the people who live in the vicinity of the El Camino Real are going to be very engaged in it. And there's no question that the people that live in our community will participate with vigor and come up with some great ideas for ways that we might improve this corridor. And so I'm looking forward to the process getting started.
Well, thank you. I'm going to call on Councilmember Hines, but I just want to say that this picture is amazing. It's one of these things where you look at it and we never see it from this angle, but I need to go walk on that trail right away. It's amazing because when you're driving next to it, you just don't envision it at all like this. Councilmember Hinsey.
Thank you. Yeah, I didn't even know that trail was ever there, and I had to zoom in on Google Maps to see that it actually exists, and it's not just a superimposed green space that somehow I missed in all my time growing up in Encinitas. So I just want to reiterate that I'm also really excited about this effort. I know the generations before mine remember a time that Encinitas Boulevard didn't connect and go through, and seen a lot of big changes. And I'm enthusiastic about the fact that this time now is about moving away from these gray fields. I think I've heard that term used, that are huge spaces of asphalt and parking lot, and that can be better utilized to create living spaces that are more vibrant and more inviting to humans rather than cars. And so I just wrote down a couple notes that I hope to be included in this effort. And one is, obviously the community input is really important, but I think it's also really important that there's a big emphasis put on it really engaging these property owners to let them know that though this process might be slow and there are all these steps and a roadmap that we're going through, that they just keep this effort in the back of their minds when considering leases to sign and re-sign. Because I know one of the things that keeps some of these sites from turning over to housing is the fact that the commercial lease lengths are just so long, 10 years or 15 years. And so I hope we can keep our eye on that and make a really robust effort to engage those property owners. And that we really envision these spaces as they redevelop to do exactly what Councilmember or Deputy Mayor Krantz suggested, that we get the chance to remove this asphalt and reinvigorate public spaces within for nature and to just, reveal some of this natural beauty that is underneath. And I did have a couple of questions, but I think I'll save them for a future meeting because this just seems like a very high level point. And so those are all the comments that I have.
Okay, thank you. I did want to ask staff if you can share with me the Armstrong parcel in this picture to the left of it. What is it that's going in right there right now? Does anybody know?
I will have to deviate to someone else that may be on this call since I have not processed current planning applications with the city of Encinitas.
It's a building going on there. It was rumored that it was Panera Bread's headquarters. I'm not sure if that's still the case there, but that's they already got the foundation laid, and I think it's a 3-story building that's going in there.
Yeah, that is the corporate office building for Panera, and currently the construction is on hold until we get further notice from the Panera corporate office.
Is it really 3 stories?
No, it's 2 stories with a basement.
And it's on hold because of a permitting problem or because they've put it on hold?
They put it on hold. Everything, we've already issued permits. They already started construction, but they informed our inspectors that the construction is on hold until further notice.
I see. Okay. And so, but there will be no bread sold there, unfortunately. Is that true?
That is true. It's an office building.
Okay.
But
Okay.
we do have plenty of spots on El Camino Real and throughout our city if they do want to choose to locate one of their retail stores in our city, because we don't have one. And we
It's just closed, right?
No, that was what's the other one? That was the other bakery.
Oh, Corner Bakery, Corner.
Bakery. Yeah, that closed. But we
There's
never had
a Panera in the
forum.
forum. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, great. This is good news, exciting, and I think we had a motion.
Yes, we have a motion and a second.
Okay, great. Well, then let's go ahead and vote.
Councilmember Hensy,
Yes.
Councilmember Lyons,
Yes.
Councilmember Mosca,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Crayons,
Yes.
and Mayor Blakespear.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.
There's a wild animal walking through my colleague's Zoom. It's a cat, I think, but it's cute to see that. Okay, great. Well, thank you to the staff and to my colleagues for their comments. So no informational items, reports pursuant to AB 1234. Anybody have any reports they want to share?
Yes, I attended the meeting of the North County Transit District Board of Directors, and we talked about a few things. Reduced coaster service is going to continue for the time being. We held a hearing on that because of the length of time that it's been reduced. But we do expect within the next couple of months to see a phased full restoration of service of the coaster. And the fare increase that had been proposed is essentially the recommendation that the NCTD board is making is similar to MTS board, which is to implement a fare policy change to allow best fare, reduce youth one-way fare to align with senior and disabled Medicare, keep all other fares at the current rate, and allow free transfer with one-way fare with the Pronto card, except for on the coaster within a 2-hour window of the first ride. And then we got an update on the zero emission bus program, and we'll be acquiring some hydrogen fuel cell buses. We got an update, informational item on the microtransit service plans for the Breeze, and also a reliability study on the Breeze. We also got an update on the Del Mar bus failure, which happened on the south end of Del Mar, just adjacent to the Torrey Pines State Park. It was a significant collapse, basically of a seawall that had been built in 1912. And back then they built things a little bit differently, but it also had received a lot of ocean wave action that essentially eroded the toe of the bluff and took out the foundation for the most part. But that's a significant collapse, and there is quite a bit of effort right now to accelerate the Del Mar Bluff Stabilization Project number 5, which would do the reinforcement necessary to have the bluff stability that's required for a full speed rail in that area. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Mosca.
Yeah, so I generally talk about water and power, but tonight I'm just gonna, make sure we have our fill of train talk because now I'm actually represent Sandag on the board of LoSan, which is the corridor, as Tony knows and has talked about before, is the corridor from San Luis Obispo down to San Diego. LoSan is not only looking out for that entire corridor and making sure we're improving that corridor, but we also operate the Amtrak, the Pacific Surfliner service. And so we had a meeting this past week. Actually, I had a meeting with just staff this past week, and we talked about a really interesting project, which is the proposed maintenance and layover yard down in San Diego. They're looking at acquiring a very large parcel down there, down towards Cesar Chavez Parkway, and that's going to allow them to have a maintenance yard that's kind of rivals the size up in Los Angeles at the end of the system here, which is really going to allow us to increase the level of service, the number of trains that will be able to come down. And so this is at the beginning stages, and it's really interesting project that's going to help all of the operators along the route, including NCTD and MTS. Also, now the ex officio member of the board of directors for Metrolink, again representing Sandag, and so that first meeting is tomorrow. And I just got their agenda. Their agenda is really hefty, and so it's a brand new role for me. I'm looking forward to the moment that we're not going to be virtual. I'm going to have to go up to San Bernardino, go to Orange County for all these meetings, but it's actually very interesting. And lots of train discussions. So you'll be getting your fill of improvements to the corridor from Tony and myself. Thank you.
Yes, well, thank you for throwing yourself into that. It can be a full-time job, can it? All these different boards.
Yeah, it's fun. It's very interesting. I hadn't really thought about the Metrolink service and how that connects to our operators and folks that are living in our areas, because I think automatically I was like, how is it even relevant to us? But it's very relevant, and so I'm glad to serve on that board.
Good. Okay. Any other reports? How about our city manager report?
No report, Madam Mayor.
Okay. City attorney report?
No report tonight.
Okay. City clerk report?
No report.
Okay. Well, then with that, we are adjourned, and our next meeting is April 7.
Good night.